What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to my channel, East Reviews. It's your boy AJ here. Want to get into something a little different. I haven't done this before, but I've kind of been a lurker of them on Twitter all this time. Vivre cards coming out and everything like that. I'm not gonna get into everything with that. Um, I'm just gonna cover a few things here and there that I found interesting and try to expand on them in my opinions and my own headcanon and everything. But before we get into that, don't forget to comment, like, subscribe. It'd mean a lot to your boy. Um, Keeps me going in the channel and everything. But yeah, so Vivre cards came out today. Had the whole timeline and kind of like a debacle, honestly. I saw a lot of arguing, a lot of people throwing out, a bunch of slander stuff. I'm not going to get into the whole Yamato thing either. Um, take that how you want. I'm take that how you want. I'm just gonna keep going the way I am. I'm not gonna tell anyone to do anything different, and hope don't tell me to do anything different as well. Um, just circumstances, I guess. Um, but to get into some of the things that I found interesting, we got a little bit of information here on some of the Flying Six members. Wrote some things down here. So we learned a few things about the Flying Six. I'm kind of going to go in the order of everything of like what I found um, entertaining, like from like least to most. So interesting enough, Black Maria, her that was her hybrid form that we'd seen her in all of this time. Um, thank God, because I really hope that that's not how she looked all the time. Because if that's the case, I don't know how she ran and lured everyone in like she did because um, it was kind of gross. I'm not a fan of spiders, so that I was like, oh, Black Maria, I'm with it until I saw the bottom half. No, I'm lost me completely. Um, but I thought it was kind of interesting that she, um, in order to obtain this specific hybrid form, it's not her real hybrid form, like her natural devil fruit hybrid form, but she takes drugs to sort of like enhance and or modify it. Um, and immediately I kind of thought this is very something similar to Chopper that him and his Rumble Ball. Um, I'm wondering, perhaps Queen is somebody who was able to help her out with this, maybe sort of isolate effects and sort of modify it in order for her to get what she wanted. We know Queen is a scientist. He seems very like a very capable scientist at that. Of course, he much rather make poisonous gas and zombie like ice zombie diseases. Um, but still, as a scientist, I think that this is something that's perfectly in his realm of capability, um, especially since he's someone who in the past was able to team up with the likes of Vegapunk, Judge. These are two notable scientists and Caesar as well. Three notable scientists who have all, in some way, shape, or form, are experts in their field and have helped shape the world in some sense. Of course, none of them are as huge as Vegapunk, but still, they're not something to sleep on. There aren't many people in the One Piece world that seem to have this sort of knowledge and expertise that those four have. So I kind of found that interesting, especially because Queen's pretty old, we found out. He's 56 years old, which puts him right around the same age as Judge. I think Judge is like 58, 59, if I remember correctly. Um, so I would expect Vegapunk to sort of be around that same age. I feel like Caesar is a lot younger. He's a lot more brash. He could have been like sort of the young startup, or maybe a little more of like an assistant to the rest of them, because he did seem to have a lot of disdain for someone like Vegapunk. Um, so I'm wondering if that's kind of how Black Maria got to where she is there. Um, we got some stuff on the rest of the Toby Ropo of Flying Six. I really didn't care too much. Maybe the most interesting thing was Ulti in page one being picked up by Kaido when they were young, and then they stole his devil fruits to get the ones that they have now. Um, so he probably just took them like, all right, well, you ate the fruits. I might as well make you like warriors for me. So it makes sense why Alti was so loyal to Kaido early on in this fight. Because we saw him really cheering him on, and anyone who talked bad about him, she kind of got upset as well. So that a lot of that makes sense as well. Um, the most the most interesting thing about the Flying Six for me, we found out a little bit about who's who as well. So we got all their bounties. Who's who has the highest bounty among the Flying Six? His is 546 million berry, whatever. Um, and he ended up fighting somebody, Jinbei, who a lot of people can speculate is the fourth strongest member of the team behind Sanji. I believe that. I firmly believe that the ceiling for Sanji is much higher than it is Jinbei's. So Jinbei was able to fight who's who has this incredible bounty. 500. 500 to get above 500,000 is no easy feat. I believe even Ace he has a higher bounty than maybe Ace or Sabo. I forgot. One of them is around the 500 mark. I have to look into that again. Um, but yeah, his bounty is nothing to like scoff at. I mean, it's not a billion, but still, it means a little bit. He's capable, especially as a former captain himself and former CP0. I'm sure part of the bounty may be because of who they think he is, because they didn't never confirmed, or CP0 never confirmed who he was. So I wonder if that sort of helped what his bounty was, because the looming threat of who he is and what he knows can always add to his bounty as well. We know it's not always power. A lot of it can also be influence and knowledge as well, which is personally what I think is a huge credible part to Dragon his bounty, but I'm not going to get into that part. But to add to who's who and why it's a little interesting, um, who's who we found out is from the North Blue. We know that the North Blue is sort of a bit of a mystery itself in the One Piece world. Sometimes I have someone in the story who said it themselves, but some parts of the North Blue are just as mysterious as the Grand Line itself. Unexplainable things and whatnot. We know people like Law are from there. I believe Kid is also from the North Blue. And also, I think there's also a couple tribes with giants, and perhaps even the continent Polar Ores was found in the North Blue. So it would make sense that someone like him, so mysterious, or someone like him from a mysterious place, is able to find himself amongst Cipher Pol. It's sort of like the CIA in sense where they go after people who don't have a lot of background to them. They would like to go after and hire a lot of no-name people. Um, yeah, I kind of thought that was a little interesting in this, because he's a little mysterious himself. He's got a credible bounty, and there was one thing I did forget to mention. Um, Sorry, I'm just rambling off the top of my head with all of this. Um, but with back when I was talking with Jinbei, um, this sort of works out with the crew dynamics I kind of thought. We know Luffy, of course, is going up against Kaido. Zoro and Sanji against King and Queen. It would make sense for someone like Jinbei to take on Jack. But we know Jack is occupied with Inarashi, and before with Inarashi and Nekomamushi. But that's because it was personal. I think in any other situation, we would see someone like Jinbei take on someone like Jack. But who's who is still no one to go at. Of course, Jinbei put him in the dirt and proved his dominance. So, I hope to see someone like Jinbei go up against someone in that third, second commander realm in the future eventually. So next thing we found out in the Vivre card, at least I thought was interesting. We found out that Shanks and Kaido, when they met, King was there as well. So some people are starting to speculate um, that this meeting right before Marineford um, was perhaps a fight or some sort of conversation. Um, Part of me really thinks um, that this was more of a conversation than it was a fight. I think if this was going to be a full on fight, um, Kaido probably would have brought in some of his other crew members. Because if he only brought King with him, I, what is he going to do at Marineford? I mean, sure, they're both capable, but we saw that even an entire Yonko crew and affiliates still struggled against the world government as a whole. So I think Kaido might have went in some ways to die, because we know he kind of has this obsession with finding a some sort of grandiose death, and perhaps there might have been nobody better to go with him than King. Um, it gets really iffy there, but that's kind of what I like to believe, that Shanks stopped him so that he wouldn't go there and cause more harm than good to the world's stability at large. We know Shanks is someone who wants to keep the balance of the world together. Um, he wants to keep the powers aligned, the Yonko, the world government, perhaps even the Shibukai to an extent, but we know that they're out of whack now. But at the time, the Shibukai. So for if Kaido did end up going to Marineford, um, I think I don't think he would have died himself, um, but his crew could have taken massive casualties, allowing the world government to potentially go into Wano. Who knows? But also, he could have really upset the balance as well, for taking out a number of Marines or perhaps even vice admirals. Maybe even an admiral would have lost their life or two, especially with the presence of not only Kaido, but Whitebeard, and eventually Blackbeard showed up as well. Um, which kind of makes me wonder, did Shanks have an idea of Blackbeard showing up there also? Perhaps there was another deterrent as to why he didn't want Kaido to come. But there's who knows, honestly. I'm sure we'll get this eventually from Kaido himself. Um, Part of me wants to think that Shanks sort of told Kaido that now is not this isn't the war that you want to be a part of. That there will be a greater war in the future, perhaps, or someone who will challenge him. Because we know that Kaido now in the Vivre card, that Kaido thinks Luffy is a real challenge for him, someone who he's actually very excited to come into contact with. Of course, he was disappointed and threw him off the bridge, but to see Luffy come back, he's going to be ecstatic, and I kind of can't wait to see his expression there. All right. And so the rest of this isn't really Vivre card stuff, just sort of stuff I saw on the timeline. I'm going to start with Zorro, and really quickly give my thoughts on this whole idea of Zorro having a lineage, not only to the former daimyo of Ringo, Urashima, but the sword god himself, Ryuma, the original owner of, not Enma, Shisui. Oh, it's coming down. So I completely understand any and all you know arguments and grievances as to why Zoro should not be a descendant of these two, but it's really difficult now to not see it and not think that this is a thing. I think a lot of us are going to have to just swallow that pill, and sort of come to reason that this may be the case. Perhaps it can be done well. Perhaps this is, it might not be as cut and dry as we think. But I'm very curious to see how this plays out because as we've gone through Wano, the similarities and the consistent um, sorry, I'm fumbling my words here, and all these coincidences. It's a little too much to just sort of be a coincidence now. It's sort of seeming like a fact that we're really gonna get here. Um, Perhaps towards the end of this arc, because I feel like this is something that Zoro may hear from Boss Hirogoro, or maybe this is something that he could hear from King himself. Um, Mostly because we know that Urashima is one of the daimyo who tried to lead a resistance to Kaido shortly after the death of Odin. So they were put down quite quickly and honestly badly, I would say. Um, I wonder if this is something that perhaps King carried out, uh, because King was able to use a sword. He seems quite proficient in it, and he was able to sort of go up against Zoro's three sword style move there and completely disarm him of his swords. Perhaps from experience, since we know that Zoro has a similar sword fighting style to Urashima. Um, but I'm curious: is King the one who took out Urashima in his rebellion in Ringo? Um, oh, what's up, old helmet? What's going on? So I'm wondering if King was perhaps the one who took them out, and maybe Zoro can find out this way about who more of Urashima and who he possibly could be. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Are you a fan of One Piece helmet? This old helmet? I don't know what to call you. But yeah, I'm really wondering if Zoro by any chance might find this out from him. All right. So that's kind of all I got really for Zoro. Again, I'm really gonna just wait and see how this all plays out. It's only a matter of time. I'm sure in a handful of chapters we'll get more of this, especially when it comes to more of mm, solo chapter, solid chapter of him versus King, because I feel like that's sort of owed to him. We've gotten a couple chapters, Jinbei and Robin, they've gotten full fights with their Toby Ropo rivals. I'm sure Sanji will get a full chapter against Queen, hopefully, or maybe it sort of going back and forth since the two of them are in the same area going up against King and Queen. But also to get to Sanji. Um, Actually, no. Before I get to Sanji, I want to speak about King a little more because we found out in the last chapter that King, his this secret race of his, um, that we seem to not really know a whole lot about. Of course, the Lunarians. They are a race of people who lived at the top of the Grand Line. So I got a couple ideas on this. Um, they're able to burst into flames, hence his name, King the Wildfire. So, part of me thinks that they lived on top of Mary Joyce originally, and that the sort of castles and everything that we see now was built on top of the ruins for there. Um, there may be some instances underground or sort of dug in beneath the red line. Um, oh, okay. Well, appreciate you for stopping through, old Helmet. Check out One Piece if you're ever interested in a very long series, kind of rich and a lot of lore and mystery. Um, yeah, appreciate it. Thank you. If you're ever into any anime manga, yeah, that's pretty much what I do here. Um, I love it. I love it. Hey, well, keep chilling, man. Just keep chilling. Enjoy yourself. Enjoy yourself. um, but back to what I was saying. So, King. Um, yeah, I think his people, they might have been living in Mary Joyce where the celestial dragons are now. But perhaps, they might have been one of the races that were eradicated by them, by the celestial dragons and their great cleansing, as Emu and the rest of the Gorosei like to put it. This is something that could have been way back during the ancient times of the Void Century, or maybe this is something a little more recent. Perhaps King is quite old. He's in his 50s himself. Um, I don't think it would be that recent, but even I think it's far enough back that uh, even Big Mom knows that it's a big deal of his existence. So I wonder if we'll get more of that from Big Mom, or perhaps from Queen or somebody else. I'm very curious how we're sort of get more of this Lunarian lore and who they are. But again, just to touch on them a little bit, um, I part of me wants to say that they are descendants of the people from the moon, someone from one of these sky islands like Enel or the Shenandoarians. Um, but we know that Oda likes to take lore from like a lot of other mythologies and stories. And one of the things that um, came to me when I was reading that chapter, um, with King, the ability to catch fire, um, and as well as being on top of the red line and having these wings. Something that came to me um, was the story of Icarus. Icarus, of course, the boy who flew too close to the sun. He had wings that caught fire, of course. A lot of you know the story. I'm not gonna get into it. Um, yeah, man, love mythology. The author for this story, he pulls a lot of mythology for his mysteries and races and everything in it. So it gets pretty rich. You get into Greek, uh, Norse, Japanese mythology. I believe even a little bit of Egyptian as well. So there's a lot to go around. Um, but yeah, to get back to what I was saying, yeah, yeah, they, they do get a little bit religious in this story as well. Um, Actually, it's funny you mentioned that because that actually leads me to my next thing. But I so part of me believes that King himself, um, or his people, kind of have a tie to that story in a way. They do live on top of the Red Line, which towers above the sea. Um, we also know that. Oh, well, brain's going crazy. I just hope my power doesn't go out. Um, but we know that King and his people living on the top of the Red Line, um, they of course they would probably have wings. Perhaps this is a genetics thing from living at such a high altitude. They developed wings, or maybe they were born with it. But I think that their ability to sort of produce fire from themselves or combust into fire. I'm not too sure what it is for him and his race just yet. But I'm wondering if it has something to do with being so close to the sun and being able to adopt the power that way. Or maybe or something related to the this recent mystery of the sun god Nika that we've been seeing in the story recently, especially when it comes to some of these other ancient races. They all seem to be worshiping something related to this sun god that keeps popping up in this story um, over the last few years. You've seen it in Shinadora. Oh, that was close. um, and we've also seen it from the giant of Elbaf, and we also see a little bit of symbolism themselves with the fishmen of Fishman Island. So I'm wondering if there is some sort of um, connection there between King and the Lunarians, as well as the Sun God. And then there was another thing that sort of uh, pointed out to me. I don't think this is the case, but we know that his race is very rare. It's very possible he's the last of his race. I'm sure there might be a few more if they're hiding out within the Grand Line, of course, but they're probably kept very low key, very under wraps. So part of their whole eradication, um, I kind of believe that it comes from the celestial dragons. We know that they believe themselves to. We know that they believe that they are gods of this world. Um, they're above everyone else. So I wonder if there was some sort of god and angel relationship between them. He does have very angelic type like wings. They're very large. They're a lot larger than a lot of the other Skypeans or anyone from a sky island that we've seen. So I wonder if there was any sort of angelic play off of that. Perhaps they served the celestial dragons very early on, and because they were deemed too dangerous, they were killed off, or maybe they lived long before, and stuff is killing me. And maybe they lived long before that, and they were just eradicated on top of it, and Mary Joyce took over. Sorry, the celestial dragons took over their home and built Mary Joyce. Um, but yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at with King, and to sort of get that into Sanji, it's becoming quite clear as well where his ability to produce fire is coming from. Um, he's Queen pointed out that he is not a normal human being. That he it's not normal for him to combust into flames. That he must be a Lunarian. Um, and King himself sort of side eyes him like there's no way. But there is a chance of Sanji potentially having this connection or ability through his lineage factor. Um, we know that Judge genetically modified all of his children. Sanji was a defect, but a lot of people have been saying, and I agree with this, he may be a late bloomer. And the fact that he finally entered into his raid suit after years of being away and not into it, perhaps this sort of activated it in a way. Sort of awakened this dormant DNA, um, or or and um, maybe not the initial Diablo Jambe that we know it, but perhaps a higher level to it that we could see very soon. Because he said he feels weird, but it doesn't look like he feels weird in a bad way. It's sort of like he feels maybe it's a well of power that he feels surging in him. He just can't quite explain it yet. So I think that the idea of Sanji getting this DNA of a Lunarian is quite possible, because we do know that Judge has a history with Vegapunk, um, and also I believe that Germa themselves were once a part of the world government, since rescinded after finding out that they were related, that they were working, trying to work with Big Mom and crew. So working with Vegapunk and potentially the world government, I wouldn't be surprised as a world leading scientist that he would ever get some sort of access to the world government's information on devil fruits, and perhaps even information on the races of the world. They have a number of slaves up at the top of Mary Joyce. There's years of research of them. They've subjugated most of the world at this time. So I think it's very possible. I think it's very possible at that point. And that's kind of all the notes I've got. Um, Yeah, sorry, this was just a huge ramble, guys. If you stuck me to the end, thank you so much. You deserve a lot for that. But hopefully this wasn't too terrible. But thanks very much for stopping by, everybody. Take care. Have a good night. Shout out to this old helmet down in the chat. Thanks for stopping by and dropping some of the mythology facts for me. You know, Odin, the basis for Santa. I kind of see it with the beard and everything. But I'm sure, once they brought in Saint Nick, they wanted a much better story than Odin's war-torn path. But with that, I'm gonna get out of here. Take care, everyone. I'll see you all tomorrow for Kaiju number 8, and Friday for more One Piece, where hopefully we can get some more juicy knowledge. And maybe I'll even drop an actual review on it this time. Trying to get into that a little more. But thanks, everybody. Take care. Comment, like, subscribe, and take care. Peace out.